Gamecock fans, now you can have your coffee and also support the Gamecocks in a championship quest to get to the top of the SEC and the top of the country by going to GamecockCoffee.com and purchasing Rise and Shine New Orleans Roast Gourmet Coffee. All of your purchases go to benefit Garnet Trust and put NIL dollars in the coffer of the Gamecocks official NIL collective. Check it out today and support the Gamecocks NIL. Good morning, Gamecock fans. JC Shurburtt here with coffee. Today is Friday, March the 7th, the year of our Lord 2025. Appreciate you listening this morning. Hope you had a wonderful week and are ready to dive into the weekend with full blast, right? Attack the weekend. Everybody's like, attack the week. Attack the weekend with full blast, my friends. Certainly ready for the weekend here. Ready to watch some Gamecock sports, quite frankly. Yesterday, nothing really going on, but today is a significant day. I think the Gamecock women's basketball team up in Greenville, South Carolina, right there at the Bon Secours Wellness Arena, they opened SEC tournament play. Tournament's been going on 2 days. So now with the 16 teams, there's double buys. There were double buys when it was 14, but now you got a full thing of games just about every day. It's kind of cool. The men will be the same way. Gamecocks, of course, will be playing early as the 16th seed as opposed to the 1 seed for the women. But Vanderbilt beats Tennessee last night. Apparently, it was a historic win. First time they'd beaten the Lady Vols in women's action. The Lady Vols, it's interesting. I kind of follow the scores and stuff. I don't watch a lot of it in depth. I'll watch highlights and kind of notice trends, but in the interest of full disclosure, I don't want to misrepresent myself here. But it seems like since the UConn win, they haven't necessarily. I mean, they beat UConn earlier this season. They haven't necessarily been as good. So certainly they'll have to go regroup and get after it in the NCAA tournament, but they lose to Vanderbilt. Hats off to Phil Mullinax for dropping the nugget that Debbie Antonelli, one of our guests on the Gamecocks, Inside the Gamecocks show in the morning show, ESPN basketball analyst, was high on Vanderbilt. So hats off to Debbie for calling it, for letting me know on the show yesterday, which was probably the worst episode of the show ever. Lots of anger. I'll try to do better. Good Lord. I got off and I was like, man, that wasn't a good show. Sometimes, when you do it a lot every day, it's better, I think, for me to reflect and be like, yeah, you need to do better than for me just to ignore it and say, here's a load of crap on a plate. You'll listen and like it. That seems to be a lot of people's attitudes in customer service and just about anything else you deal with our society in these days. There's a good percentage of them out there that don't really care. But I do. And again, if you listened to the show yesterday, I wasn't really proud of that one. I'll get fired up. You guys that listen to me a long time know that. But it was just a lot of like spite. And just because I'm in a bad mood doesn't mean I have to come on the show and do it. I got to do better. Anyway, I don't want to spend a lot of time on coffee for that since apparently I'm too wordy. Anyway. So yeah, the women tip off. That game will be at noon. It's on ESPN. So not the SEC network or SEC Network Plus streaming. It's ESPN for those of you that are looking to find it on your channel at noon today. Also, after that, Oklahoma plays Kentucky. That's going to be the matchup. I believe the Gamecocks will. The winner of that one, if the Gamecocks beat Vanderbilt, they'll play the winner of that one Saturday. Then in the evening on the other bracket, Ole Miss and Texas. And then LSU gets Florida, who knocked off Alabama. So lots of good action. If you like women's basketball, I'm sure there'll be a big Gamecock crowd up there. You can head to the Inside the Gamecocks Instagram account and find some information there on meet and greet, send off, all that good stuff. Check social media from the Gamecock Club for the headquarters up in Greenville. If you're in Greenville, Spartanburg, and want to go over and hang out with Gamecocks, or you're planning on going, and I'm sure the fams will be in full force there. So go get them, right? Go win the SEC tournament. I think there's been a little bit of disrespect for this basketball team this year based on maybe the margin of the UConn loss and the loss to Texas. I mean, Texas is still number one in the country, so I don't know. It's splitting hairs with those rankings, but those rankings don't matter. It's the net that matters as far as the NCAA tournament and things like that go. But I still think I've always had this theory that there is a little bit of disrespect among the national media for South Carolina women's basketball for a number of reasons. And I'm not going to get too passionate about it. I got to save my energy for disdain for the football media, like I talked about yesterday on the show, which made it a bad show. But I do think that they're quick to say, "Oh, well, they're not going to be good anymore," which is weird because they've been the best program in the sport for a while, and it's not like they don't have great players. Maybe people don't like the style of play, but I don't care. I mean, winning is winning. You don't. You're supposed to rank them based on how good they are, not if they play your preferred style. That's how the College Football Playoff Committee picks things. Nevertheless, it should be a good day of action there. South Carolina also plays a big softball game in Norman, Oklahoma. Ashley Chastain Woodard has that team undefeated, ranked. They're ranked, according to Gamecocks Online, it's 11th. I saw 9th earlier this week. So I don't know. Again, rankings. I don't know much about how they rank softball programs. I haven't tracked it before. But it's an exciting sport, and a lot of our fans out there are going to watch it tonight. And it's, as I've said many times, as Rick Pitino said, Roman Empire of college basketball is the University of Kentucky. The Roman Empire of college softball, without a doubt, is Oklahoma. And they're, of course, new in the league, and they're ranked second by a lot. I think Texas is first. Brutal softball league, right? So the Gamecocks are going to go. This is like in basketball, if you're playing Duke at Cameron, or in football, going to Bryant Denny in Alabama, or the Big House, or name your cathedral of college football. So big moment for Ashley Chastain Woodward and the softball team this weekend. Baseball, Morehead State comes in this weekend. Hoping for a sweep. Morehead State's not as far north as some of the other northern teams, the cannon fodder that rolls through. Have you ever noticed this too about college baseball? Like when they play the quote unquote, and they do this for a reason. I think they do it to help out the northern teams, because the northern teams have to play, so they all come south. But you won't see them schedule like a Stetson or most of the time. Most schools won't. Like now midweek, yes, but a 3-game set over the weekend. No, you don't see them do that. A lot of the teams around the South, some of them do, but a lot of them don't. So that's pretty interesting. And so a question would be, would you guys be more interested in these baseball games? And look, I'm not complaining about the crowds at Founders Park. I think weather's had so much to do with that. And then the weird start time against Clemson and all that stuff last week, and kind of game 3 of that series after the first 2 had gone, have affected the crowd. But it's been, my understanding is it's been unseasonably cool when the Gamecocks have played. And I know you folks that live down there, you're not used to it like I am now. The cold. I know when it gets below 50, it's like bundle up time. So that's cool. But so I'm not complaining about the crowds at the Founders Park. I'm just wondering if, let's say things were different, and you did schedule like Citadel for 3 games, or Charleston Southern College at Charleston, something like that. Probably the crowds would be a little bigger, but I guarantee you'd take some L's. Just like, if LSU scheduled Tulane or Louisiana for 3, and I'm sure they have, or, name your tough as nails in-state mid-major in a southern state. Baseball scholarships are expanding, though. I can tell you that I think they will have a significantly high scholarship count. Texas's came out the other day; it was 25. I'm assuming I know in men's basketball. I know for sure in football, and I'm pretty sure in men's basketball, the schools they're all going to agree in the SEC on scholarship limits. So I'm assuming that's the case for baseball. Maybe not, though, since Different schools emphasize it. I think just about everybody in the SEC emphasizes it. Maybe not Missouri, but I think that number is going to be 25. But we'll see how it goes. Texas's number is 25. I'll just say that, and then we'll see how it goes from there. All right, want to tell you about GamecockCoffee.com. You heard that at the top if you're viewing on YouTube. Again, for those of you that just listened to coffee, I apologize. The YouTube version was late yesterday. I had a technical issue. I left the house. It was uploading. I came back. It was still 28%. I have two internets that I connect to. I have a Comcast and a Verizon. I was on my own personal one, Verizon, that the kids and the wife don't get on. Um, for some reason, it just went haywire. So I'm sorry it got up late. I usually try to get it up on YouTube about the same time as the podcast. Podcast version went off without a hitch. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. GamecockCoffee.com is one of our sponsors. Folks, as I dig more into the NIL side of things and the revenue side of things and what's going to happen, we can have the debate about if it's fair, if it's not fair, what other schools are going to do. If and I soundly reject the notion that South Carolina can't compete across the board because they have been. You may look at all these, fantastical numbers that people are throwing around, and look at the win and loss column, folks. Look at football. And look at frankly, look at the win and loss column in men's basketball because that's what matters. It doesn't matter how much they spent. And guess what? It mattered last year too in men's basketball, and what they spent last year matters in baseball. But looking at it, if you care a lot about Gamecock basketball, Gamecock baseball, softball, those sports. If you're one of those all sporters, which most of you are, there's really got to be a push for NIL dollars. And one of the ways to do it, of course, is Gamecock coffee and popcorn. And we keep getting one or two every day trickling in. And like I said, that's fine. But I can't emphasize how important it's going to be, especially going into the forthcoming transfer portal period for men's basketball. And it's not just coffee. If you don't want coffee or popcorn, that's fine. Anything else Garnet Trust does, the dollars have to flow in, and you can't just write a check anymore because as of July 1st, that money's not going to be able to be used, allegedly. Now, even if the house settlement parts of it get challenged, like the clearinghouse part where they have to, clear, run it through the clearinghouse or whatever. If that gets nixed, it's still going to be a big part of it. I think everyone's in agreement. Booster money, as in donations, needs to get out of it. That doesn't stop a booster from buying memberships to a collective and funding it, or buying 1 million bags of popcorn, something like that. It doesn't stop that from happening now. I mean, that's just part of it. But and I don't think it'll ever stop that. You can't stop anything like that. But then, so even if that's the case, you're still not going to have big money people writing checks. So it's got to be funded either way, is what I'm saying. So help me out with that, folks. Help me out. And I won't, I will briefly mention Palmetto Belt and Golf because Brandon's a great guy. PalmettoGolfing.com. I believe in his product, faith, freedom, forever to thee. All kinds of ways to kind of express yourself, to quote Office Space, 27 pieces of flair or whatever. No, it's high quality stuff, and I love the price. Like I said, my stepsons love those woven belts. $150 for a belt. Brandon's about significantly cheaper. So go to PalmettoGolfing.com and check it out. So you've heard my NIL thing, you've heard the sponsorship thing, and so now it's time to get the football thing. Got an email, and it made me start to think about this. Outraged. I don't even know if it's a Gamecock fan. How can you possibly be confident in Gamecock football next year with all the talent they've lost? This program's not, it got into the old and tired argument. This program's never won in 130 years, and it's just been awful, and blah, blah, blah. And for years, it was this and that. And I'm like, and look, I love the history of the program. I'll talk about the 90s and 80s, and I'll even go back to the days before I was following it, before I was born, the parts that I've studied. I love diving in and learning about the ACC era, and I remember the Metro Conference era in sports other than football. Did that make South Carolina Notre Dame kind of? I'm just kidding. Notre Dame's in all sports but football in the ACC. Yeah, that would have been cool, though, to play 5 Metro Conference opponents. Carolina, they did play Virginia Tech, Florida State pretty regularly as an independent. But hey, playing Tulane and Memphis, Louisville. Louisville was a little dangerous at the time. Anyway, not sure why I went there. But anyway, Metro Conference, I love that. But really, for football specifically, 2000 was such a significant season. And we're coming up on the 25th anniversary of that. It was significant for me personally. And I think there'll be a historical type podcast with myself and someone that you guys know well, to kind of how I'll get into all that then. It'll be kind of a documentary style or trip down memory lane style. But that 2000 season was amazing. Number one, it was the greatest turnaround in the history of college football at the time. Number two, since that point, South Carolina's not, in truth be told, there's more bowls. But Carolina's been in it, so who cares? Going to 8 bowls all time for the entire 20th century is pathetic. And there were a couple of seasons where the administration didn't want them to go to a bowl where they could have, which was ridiculous. But 8 bowls all time, or I'm sorry, they did go to 9 because they were 0-8, and then 9 bowls in the 20th century. I think the number now is up to 26. There have been 17 bowls since. If it's not a winning season around here, it's bad. It used to be that a winning season was a pretty good year. And keep in mind, Carolina was only in the SEC 8 years for that entire century. So if you're going to go back before then, there were a lot of problems, and we can dive into that, but that has nothing to do with right now. Let's focus on the last 25 years. And this program has not been great overall, but it's not been bottom of the barrel, and it's been more competitive against tougher competition than it ever has been. No matter who the coach has been, really. I mean, the expectations have gone higher. So I agree, as I've said in a previous episode, that this is a historical amount of talent that has been lost. I agree that there are concerns about replacing that talent. I agree that that's the key to the offseason. I also pointed out that when Spurrier had the program rolling, and let's be clear, as far as total wins, which is the bottom line, Shane Beamer's had a 9-win season, but hadn't gotten that double-digit season win, so you can't say they're rolling right now like they were then. And even those teams had some Gamecock luck type of things happen to them. And really Spurrier luck too, because he never went undefeated at Florida either. There would always be one game where the head ball coach his teams wouldn't win for whatever reason. It's kind of part of him. Carolina, that was 2 in most seasons. But look, hey, Spurrier had them at the top as a top 10 program. And that was the pinnacle of Gamecock football, and could have, 2013 really ended up being the opportunity, even though that team I don't think was as good as 2011 or 2012, the opportunity to break through. And it just didn't happen, thanks to Marquez North, a freshman receiver, making a nice catch at Tennessee. I'll never forget that game. But that stretch, so we're not there yet with Beamer. Okay, so I get it. We're not at the point where it's like, all right, here's what's left to accomplish because you're already here. They only won 9 last year, but let's be honest. They were in the playoff hunt. You have a promising, exciting young quarterback. You have one of the best defensive players in college football on the other side, and they're coming back next year. And I think that's enough to be optimistic as far as where the program's at. Recruiting for 2025 class was ended up better than expected. They had another good haul from the portal on paper. All that I always say on paper because that has to work out. So there's reasons to be optimistic about it. But, let's be honest, until you've gone through a period like the Blue Bloods everybody talks about, where you've lost double digit players to the NFL, that means a lot of good players have left. And I saw somebody, I'm not even going to mention their name. So South Carolina sent 11 players to the combine, and we think they're going to get better next year. Yeah, maybe. As far as record goes, they could get better. I don't know if that'll be next year's team. We'll look back on it and go, wow, that there were 12 players going to the combine from that team, or 13 NFL. I think last year there was a lot as far as the individual talent. It was just one of those years where you kind of had a backlog of guys that had an extra year because of COVID that got good, coming in from the portal and already on the roster. There's a lot that went into it. Still, it was impressive. And still, I think this program, as it continues to ascend, it's going to be pretty regular where they're sending a lot of guys to the combine. That's the hope, right? But yeah, I saw that and I was like, oh, here we go. This is going to start happening. So, nevertheless, I understand completely all of that. And, I think that the day has got to come where South Carolina does, like the Blue Bloods, send a lot of players to the NFL. And then they can come back and reload, so to speak. And I think that's the answer to the offseason. And here is the tough truth. I cannot guarantee that it is going to happen. Nobody can. Shane Beamer can't guarantee that. The players can't guarantee that. It could be that next year Carolina is good, finishes, let's see, about like A&M did this past year, 8-5, or LSU at 9-4. I don't expect them to backslide to like a losing record. I think injuries certainly play a factor. And I don't know that this team is going to be as deep at certain positions as it was last season. I think in some cases, it'll probably be deeper at certain positions. I don't necessarily think either the team kind of got through the year scot-free on the injury bug. Because listen to this. Think about if Lenore Sellers had not gotten hurt and pulled against LSU. South Carolina probably wins that game. He was playing, the light had come on. And then who knows how much it threw him off to not play against Akron and sit. And because he's the type of player, too. Sometimes players need to sit and watch, and then they come back and they're better. He's the type of guy, he just gets better the more he plays. Consecutive week after week after week, better and better and better and better and better. And who knows how much that kind of stunted his growth at the time. Because he didn't seem right until the Alabama game. And really when he threw that pass to Mazeo Bennett for the touchdown at the end of the half is when you're like, okay, here we go. And then he had the fumble. I mean, Lenore Sellers was not perfect last season at all. But who knows how much better he would have been had they finished out the LSU game. So injuries hurt them there. I think the injury to Rocket Sanders, first play against Akron, and then there's an off week, and then he comes back against Ole Miss. 9 carries, 32 yards in that 27-3 loss. They probably, I don't think he was 100%. I think he's probably, and I was told before the game 70%. Let's say he gets going in that one and they can ride him a little bit. South Carolina probably, in all those drives between the 20s, they probably punch 1 or 2 in, right? with Rocket. Maybe they don't throw Ashford out there on the 4th and 1, and Rocket just runs it, or something. So that part of it's that. And then the receivers I've talked about all year, revolving door. Nobody could ever kind of get into a rhythm like I talked about Sellers. So they didn't really escape last year. They just didn't have the massive amount of injuries on the offensive line and elsewhere. And they had the depth, I think, to kind of not let things fall apart. The schedule helped too. It helped that Akron was there when the next game when Sellers was out. But look, man, I mean that they didn't get through, but no team will. I mean that's part of the game. So you can't sit there and say, definitely 9-4. I'll say if hell or definitely won't go to 6-6 because what if there's significant injuries, like very significant ones? Then it changes things. So, got to tell you the truth. Uh, there's no way to predict that. But, I do think that bottom line, this program is in a position where they can fill the voids and go win. And I think that, they're going to be young at some spots. Let's just tell the truth here. Justin Okoronkwo, as much as I love him as a player, he's a second-year guy. He was a true freshman last year at Alabama. And so he's not Demetrius Knight Jr., who was 23 years old. Been around the block a few times. Certainly won't replace his leadership. Now, he's a freak athlete. I don't think that Fred Johnson, is Debo Williams as far as experience goes. Debo got better and better. Fred Johnson's 6'4", 240. I mean, he dwarfs Debo size-wise. And he's a monster player, but he's young. So they are going to be young at some spots, even with transfer portal players. I mean, Jaylen Brown is a redshirt freshman, just like Okoronkwo. Aaron Nolan, who will probably be the backup quarterback, in my opinion, is a redshirt freshman. I mean, it's going to be a younger team. And so there's that to kind of balance out with everything. Lenore's in his second year as a starter, that kind of thing. Of course, Oscar Attaway, 7th year of football. So you do have some older guys. But I was thinking about this. I hate to bring it up. But I remember Clemson when they kind of had their breakthrough, 2015, a similar type deal where they had a quarterback, second year as a starter, high expectations. And they made it all the way to the national championship game against Alabama. And I remember Dabo saying, "We're young." And I'm like, come on, man. This is the best team Clemson's had since 1981. And he said it about middle of the year. But I looked at the roster. I was like, yeah, there are some older guys, but the 2014 team lost a core of players that had been there a while. The Grady Jarretts of the world, Vic Beasley, guys like that. And what Clemson did, they took advantage of their good recruiting and they replaced them. South Carolina's been recruiting pretty well. And so that's what has to happen, and then there's the portal aspect as well. Clemson did it with their high school guys. But when you have guys like Christian Wilkins, Cleveland Farrell, guys like that, yeah, you could do it. I don't see a Christian Wilkins definitely because Carolina, we've gone through what happened at D tackle. Like a Christian Wilkins as far as being a freshman and coming in, because Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy looks like $1 zillion, a zillion. By the way, go check out his interview on thebigspur.com. Also here on Chief Sports South Carolina in the shorts. Wants to be a preacher. Wants to be favorite players Reggie White. Body type wise reminds me of this player, and he was a bust, but it was because of off the field. But this kid's also from that same part of Florida. This kid was from Armwood and Seffner, Florida, which is from Lakeland. If you go right down I-4 toward Tampa, Armwood is right there off the highway. And I ranked him the number 1 player in the state of Florida in the 07 class. His name was Torrey Davis. Torrey Davis actually made a big play against Oklahoma on I think a 4th-and-1. Florida beat him 24-14 for the national title in 08. but I think it was the defensive MVP of the game. And then Torrey had some off the field stuff and never heard from him again after that. But that was the reason I ranked him number one. He's kind of that taller, broad shouldered, long armed, not a lot of fat on your body, but 6'3", 305, built. I after looking at Brownlow Dindy and then talking to a contact or two and watching, I'm like, that's why that guy was highly ranked coming out of high school. 5-star guy. He helps the blue chip ratio. And so I understand the logic now. Sometimes when you see players like body type wise, it all kind of comes together. And then we learn, lo and behold, I don't know why yours truly didn't just now on March 7th of 2025 telling you this. He tore his ACL in the Under Armour game as a high school senior, and it put him way behind guys like Walter Nolan at Texas A&M. Nolan, of course, went to Ole Miss afterward. And some of those other studs they have, and they brought so he was very honest about what happened to him. He's like, well, by the time I kind of got caught up, everybody else is moving forward too, and they're pretty good. So he just gosh, A&M was just really good. And they were. I mean, you look at some of their, like Shamar Stewart and some of their individual draft grades, and that's pretty, they were pretty impressive even this past year. And I'll add one more thing to that. That kind of shows you why it was frustrating at times, especially for me, the run blocking at Carolina this year. Because South Carolina in that football game, Carolina's offensive line, I don't know what it was, full of piss and vinegar, tired of whatever. They blocked A&M. They blocked them and blocked that beautiful front in the run game. Yeah, in the run game. I understand in the pass game, Lenore Sellers escaped. But in the run game, Carolina, I mean, that's Rocket Centers had big, beautiful holes to run Rocket through. And he ran off and left them a lot. So that tells you something about what the offensive line could have done last year when they decided to put their mind to it. But that could be a week-long podcast series, the offensive line at South Carolina. And it would get massive ratings too. Nevertheless, so Gabriel Brownlow Dindy could be an answer there long term, but he's not. That's why I didn't. So could he be a Christian Wilkins type? I don't know. Christian Wilkins was kind of different. My point is, going back to what I said about Clemson, is that they were really good and they were kind of young, and I don't know if they lost 11 NFL Combine guys off 2014 or not, but that's a lot of good players that did play in the NFL and were drafted. Lost a lot of talent, especially on defense. Sounds familiar, yes. So there's precedent for these days, people talk about Clemson in kind of a higher regard, but if you think back to 2014, they had won the ACC once in 2011 since 1991. So that was obviously a breakthrough. And in college football, breakthroughs are rare. And there's the only example really is the team that's located in the state of South Carolina. But so it can be done. Now, Carolina does not play in the ACC, but there's also a 12-team playoff. So I don't know. We'll see how everything goes. And then this year with the 12-team playoff in 2020, it's the same as last year. There's some new committee members. I think that if they do anything at all, they're going to redo the seedings, but I think fat chance. I think we're looking at the same kind of concept. So I would leave nothing to chance. Go if you can go 10-2. Not that you're ever going to try to lose a football game, but if you can get to 10-2 in the regular season, which has been done around here before, Spurrier did it 3 times. Joe Morrison won 10 and 84. Then chances are Carolina can not only get in, but maybe have a home game. If they are in the first round, maybe get to Atlanta. Who knows? But so that's the thing there. But there's precedent for, and at some point, look, you have to do this as a football program. And I understand the history, and I understand people naturally are looking for things to worry about, and it's because you care, and I get it. But let's not throw in the towel just yet because all these players are leaving. And just wanted to answer that question. I'm not, I don't think, blowing sunshine and rainbows. I haven't made any predictions for next year. I think I'm much more better suited to serve my audience, you folks out there, as to tell you about process and why and how. And, I'll throw my opinion in there, especially about individual players. But college football is about, like, when you predict it, it's about scenarios. Which scenario will lead to this outcome? Which scenario will lead to this other outcome? And I've been well served sticking to that. That's why I don't like making game predictions and stuff. I just I don't. If I'm going to pick a game, I'm going to do it on my Caesars gambling app and put $5 on it. It is, yeah, like I'm playing a slot machine or Pac-Man or something. Anyway, be sure to check out the morning show. We have Rafael Esparza, speaking of Vegas and slot machines, coming in with JB and Phil. Also, Stuart Lake in for his Friday baseball conversation. Phil and I will try to have a better show today, especially me, with Inside the Gamecocks, the show after that. Again, we had to cancel the JC and Morgan this morning with Dan Wetzel because Dan just got a job at ESPN. I knew it. Sure enough, I went to bed early last night, woke up with a text from Mike. Oh, Dan's got to push. So we're going to do that on Tuesday with Dan Wetzel, author of Death of the BCS. So the JC and Morgan has been postponed on Chief Sports. And then don't forget, noon, we'll have women's basketball. It'll be on ESPN. 7 o'clock is first pitch for Morehead State and Carolina in baseball on SEC Network Plus. And then 7:30 is that? Hold on. I think that's SEC Network Plus as well. So 7:30 you'll have softball. Maybe no, that's SEC Network. I don't know. Hold on. Hold on. Let me grab this. No, it's SEC Network Plus. So streaming. The men's soccer team plays Gardner Webb tonight too. John Whittle would appreciate, and Tony Annan would appreciate me saying that and dropping that into the daily roundup. Don't forget GamecockCoffee.com. Help me spread the word. Download the Chief Sports app and have a wonderful weekend. Most important, I appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in every day for JC Shurburtt's Coffee. Next week, we're going to dive into some really neat football topics and some really neat football topics and things like that, diving into the roster, talking about what I'm hearing, all that good stuff, geography, big picture stuff. There are endless ways to talk about college football. See you, everybody. Have a wonderful day. JC Shurburtt out. Holla at you later.